Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the District 5030 Festival of Training. I'm Lisa Edwards from the University District Rotary Club, and I will be your tech support this evening. And I am pleased to present a distinguished panel of presenters who you see on the screen this evening. Joining us, Kay Peterson, Meg Powers, Shauna Smith, and Tim Leahy. I'll be turning off my camera during this session so that you can focus on the presenters, and also sharing a slide presentation that they have prepared. This session is being recorded and it will be available and posted on the District 5030 webpage on YouTube, for further viewing and sharing with others as well. During this presentation, you are welcome to ask questions for the presenters to answer at the very end. You will see at the bottom of your screen a little couple of bubbles that say Q&A, and you are welcome to type in your questions. I'll be monitoring those throughout the presentation, and then we'll answer those at the end. So at this point now, I'm going to turn off my screen, start the presentation, and turn it over to Kate.
So Lisa, do you want me to do Loving What You're Learning?
Absolutely, you're welcome to go ahead.
Okay, here's your chance to pick 2 more skills. Haven't we had a blast in this new world we're in? June 4th from 5 to 6 p.m. Ever wish you could change something about Rotary? Who wouldn't? Here's your chance. Please join that group and offer up your opinions. Thursday, June 4th, 7 to 8 p.m., optimizing online Rotary meetings. There are so many interesting, wonderful things that you can utilize in the Zoom platform to make your Rotary meetings exciting and relevant and new. So please sign up for those. We've had a great response to the training so far. I have to say, kudos to Jean and Kathy and Bill. This has been brilliant. It has been brilliant, the number of people we've reached with all these trainings. So thank you for doing that, and sign up for these last 2. Next. Okay, we can go to the next one. That's us. So the vision of Rotary International, they redid this a year or so ago, and it's really short, it's succinct, and I think it's just a fabulous vision for us all to embrace. Together, we see a world where people unite, take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. This is the perfect 2-second elevator speech for you all. So embrace it, tell it to everybody you know, put it on your t-shirts. It's awesome. Next. Okay, well, good afternoon. Welcome to our session, Virtual Fundraising. Welcome to the new world. I'm so happy you are here. It's just odd that we can't shake hands and be in the same rooms together. Who thought 90 days ago that we would be doing online auctions, we would be doing online galas, every Rotary meeting would be meeting online, we would be seeing our grandchildren through Zoom. I certainly didn't envision that world, but it's what we have. So I've asked my team to join me here today because we had a mere 3 weeks from the time the governor said no big groups, no gatherings, and 3 weeks from that point, we were supposed to host a 700-person in-person event in a tent in Marymore. So obviously that didn't happen. So turned to the team and said, what do we do now? And we are going to share with you some of the things we learned. We're going to give you some of our expertise that we've garnered, some of the mistakes we might have made, But we did not envision that we would execute something so totally unique that turned out just phenomenal. And kudos to my team. There was a lot of people that worked on this, but primarily our leads were Meg and Shauna. Our team raised $1.26 million for Evergreen Healthcare. Now, it doesn't matter. Don't get caught up in the fact that it was $1 million. Get caught up in the fact that this is our new world. This is the way we'll do fundraising, our meetings, our events. From here on, for at least, I would guess, several months, if not as much as a year. So I hope today that you'll think about whether you're raising $26,000, whether you're raising $260,000, or whether you aspire to do $1.26 million. You can do whatever you plan and set your mind to doing. So we're gonna go through 4 objectives today with you. We're gonna hopefully excite you and encourage you to embrace the online virtual opportunity. It's here, it is what it is. The sooner you embrace it and the sooner you start doing your work toward that, the better your event will be. We're going to understand peer-to-peer fundraising. Peer-to-peer fundraising is the linchpin to a successful virtual gala, auction, run. It doesn't matter what it is. Think of it as you could invite 10 people to the auction that you were going to host somewhere. Now you can invite 150 people to that same table or that same page where you're going to host them at. So embrace the idea that this isn't limited to those who can actually physically get there. This is open to every person that you want to share your passion for, that you're raising money for. We're going to talk to you about how we designed our virtual event and some tips and tricks for you to design yours. And then we're going to talk about platforms. And I'm not a tech person, and I have to say the things that we see coming down the pike, certainly Tim can attest to this. We chose one and went with it because we had not a lot of time. There are literally tens of platforms coming online every week for people to work with and do. We'll give you some resources, tips, and tricks, and we plan to leave plenty of time for Q&A because we'd like to help you be as excited about your virtual fundraising as we are. So Meg, that means you're next. I'd like to introduce Meg Powers. Meg is our Director of Operations at Evergreen Health Foundation and our annual giving officer. She led the team that pivoted in this manner and led the success of our team for this. So Meg, take it away.
All right, thank you so much. You can hear me okay? You can hear me okay?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. All right, thanks, Kay. I'm excited to be here virtually this evening and speaking about this topic simply because times are changing and changing so quickly, as we have all seen. And as scary as and uncertain as that may be, there are so many possibilities and exciting things on the horizon that we have at our fingertips, as Kay alluded to. So with that, I'll get into setting your virtual stage and the foundation of your event as we navigate these changing times. And then I'll hand it off to my colleague, Shauna Smith, who will show you some examples of virtual events that we have seen in the last 10 months, or 10 weeks rather, and speak to executing your virtual event. So in setting the virtual stage and with the stay-at-home order in effect, companies, organizations, and nonprofits, we all have to adapt to this new normal. And with that, there is a scale that we've never seen before. And in this new normal, we have to realize that there is tremendous value in the virtual realm. If you think about it, the possibilities truly are endless. You're not confined, this is, alluding to what Kay just said, you're not confined to a limited number of guests that will traditionally fit in your typical ballroom. Your audience has just grown by leaps and bounds, truly. This does mean, however, that the competition for audience has increased as well in a big way. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've been receiving a lot more, I've been invited to a lot more virtual events in the last 10 weeks than I have ever before. So once you go virtual, you are able to cast such a wide net, but you still want to stay relevant, of course. But that's why you want to embrace that technology, embrace that this is where we are in the world right now. And there are exciting ways that we as organizations and groups can adapt and rise to the occasion and still be present and fulfill our fundraising goals. Next slide, please. So when planning your virtual event, you will want to approach it pretty similarly to how you would go about planning your traditional fundraising event to set the foundation. Number one, you're going to make the decision. This basically means that the longer you wait to make the decision to go virtual, the higher the financial risk to your organization. Limit your liability sooner rather than later to keep your expenses as low as possible. When we were faced with the decision to go virtual or not, we were really the first ones to kind of be to have to make this decision. So we immediately sprang to action to collect data from our existing contracts. Who had we already paid and we cannot recoup that money from? What bills were still outstanding? What could we roll over to the next year? And what funds can we get back and essentially add them to our bottom line? We found naturally that the sooner we made that decision to go virtually and release some of those contracts, the lower our overall costs would end up being. So we were, like I said, one of the first to have to make that decision, and in that position where we truly did not know what was about to happen in the world. So we had to essentially do a complete 180. The benefit that you have is time to make that decision and maximize your planning time. For most organizations who have events in the next couple of months, the decision has basically been made for you, right? So maximize your planning time, and that is going to be key as you have lots of options and opportunities out there. Next, you're going to create the why. Determine what kind of event you want to create. Is it just about creating a wonderful, fun to need, a video that hits home? You still want to somehow create your silent and your live auctions. Do you want to run a raffle? Oh, we're back at the first slide there, the map out your strategy. Thank you. So we're on there you go, yep. We're on number 2, the create the why. So do you want to create a fund in need? Do you want to somehow recreate your silent or live auctions? Do you want to run a raffle, or do you want to do all of the above? Decide what's important for you and your group, and keep in mind your ultimate goal and your audience. Again, in a few slides, Shauna will show you some real world examples of these aspects being played out. But as you're working through that planning process, creating your why, be thinking about your wider audience, not only the attendees who typically come year after year, but your sponsors, your peers, your friends to the organization, etc. Think wide. And then number 3, you're going to want to create an authentic and concise message. Again, very similar to how you would traditionally plan your in-person event. What do you want your audience to feel, and how do you want them to feel? What is your message, the reason for the event, and what is your fundraising goal at the end of the day? Successful events are usually ones that have a focused message. If you have too many beneficiaries, we've seen your message easily can get lost in an audience, and it can look pretty scattered. And this is more important now more than ever. Given the competition for that virtual audience, we all know that an individual's attention span is quite small in the virtual world. So you want to be able to convey your message in the shortest, sweetest, and simplest way, because with the click of a button, any one of your audience members can go elsewhere. You no longer have them for that few hours in a room all to yourselves to convey that message. It has to be focused, authentic, and concise. Okay, next slide, please. As you work through the planning process, pay close attention to your sponsors. They can and might want to play a vital role in the planning and execution phases. Give them a say and ask what they would like to see going virtual. Sponsors, you might be surprised, will receive more benefits than ever by going virtual. More eyes will be on their logo and their company as your virtual event expands wider and wider to different audiences and different networks. Don't be afraid to get creative with your sponsor benefits. Many aspects of your virtual event can be named. Your various pages can be sponsored. Each auction package can be sponsored, etc. We have seen many commercials that serve as virtual ads that sponsors are putting together to be inserted into the virtual event. And many organizations do a sponsor spotlight on social media as well, leading up to their events to highlight those sponsors and their supporters. Always consider opportunities to recognize your sponsors and thank them before, during, and after your event. These are huge opportunities and incentives for those companies themselves to get their name out there to different audiences. And don't forget, this is digital, so anything you put on your website can live there for however long you would like it to live there for. It can live in perpetuity. So in an environment where you might be thinking, maybe our sponsors are not getting as much bang for their buck in this year, in this environment, because they won't receive signage at the event or they won't receive verbal recognition from the stage, think again, because their benefits are far greater than ever before, truly. Next slide, please. So before you launch your event, you'll want to create and map out a pretty solid communications and marketing plan considering all avenues. That includes email, social media, promotions, snail mail, and/or texting. Start communications weeks in advance so your constituents close to your organization know what's coming up and that you are going virtual. If there is no communication, people might assume that you've canceled your event entirely and would move on to other causes. It's obviously very easy to do, as we've talked about. So communicate, send reminders, and make it personal. Any chance you have to send a personal email instead of a mass e-blast, obviously that is ideal. More people will open an email from a friend rather than an email from an organization at large. You'll also want to create an easy-to-use toolkit to those close to your organization. Think an email template that someone can easily personalize and forward out to their networks. Make it easy for them to do. Which brings us to peer-to-peer fundraising. What is that and how can we benefit from that? Next slide, please. So I'm going to read this out loud. Peer-to-peer fundraising is a fundraising strategy that empowers individuals to raise funds on behalf of a cause via online fundraising pages by leveraging existing social networks. All in all, basically this means virtual word of mouth. Similarly to how you might ask a supporter to be a table captain at your in-person event, peer-to-peer is just like that, but on steroids. You're asking that supporter to be a table captain and then determine their own fundraising goal for the cause by creating their own fundraising page and inviting others to contribute to that goal. For instance, I created a fundraising page on behalf of Evergreen Health for the Evergreen Health virtual gala. My personal goal was to raise $10,000 for the cause. I then sent that page out to my social networks, think neighbors, family, friends, groups, social media, etc. All those people I invited to join me in my efforts to raise that $10,000. Then those people can make a contribution and then send it out on behalf of them to their social networks. They can post that on Facebook and say, I just donated to Meg's fundraising page. I'm in it. I'm in. Are you in too? So you can see how this can spider out and cast a wider net than just the 10 people I would have invited to my table last year or at a typical in-person event. You will see by these graphics here how this can happen. Traditionally, there's a cap. Virtually, the network just keeps expanding. And to demonstrate this, we pulled numbers from the Evergreen Health Virtual Gala and found in a traditional year at our in-person gala, we see that approximately 32% of our guests actively bid at our gala. Going virtually this year has increased our active donors by over 200%. This was a huge win for us, and it showed in our bottom line. Furthermore, and probably most importantly, we have a new set of supporters that we didn't have before that now we can continue to engage and steward moving forward. Next slide, please. This graphic just shows peer-to-peer at its core functionality. So an individual can participate in 3 different ways. They can support as an individual and create their own fundraising page. This is what I just mentioned that I did for Evergreen Health's virtual gala. Someone can join an existing team, or a team can be created. For example, if leadership wanted to come together and create a team and a larger fundraising goal on behalf of the organization, they can do that. We typically see this with sponsors as well. They create a company page, fundraising page, set an additional goal on top of their sponsorship dollars that they will then send out to their employees and their networks to raise money on their behalf. Now I will turn it over to my colleague, Shauna Smith, who will show you some of those real-world examples I've been referencing and give a little color on how to execute virtual fundraising. Shauna is Evergreen Health Foundation's Corporate Sponsorship and Events Officer and managed this year's virtual gala. Shauna, I'll pass it over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Meg. So like Meg just shared, let's take a look at 4 examples of local organizations that transform their in-person events to digital experiences. And for your reference, we've included the links for these sites at the end of the presentation. So first up, we have Evergreen Health's virtual gala that was held in April. As Meg and Kay shared, from decision to launch, it took us 3 weeks. The primary focus of our gala was 3 things, really, is that we wanted focused and clear messaging about our beneficiary. So all of our messaging was about our new intensive care unit, our graphics, and all of our storytelling, our story arc really was focused on that effort. We were strategic about focusing on peer-to-peer, and as Meg just shared, it was really about expanding our reach and accessing the power of others, sharing our story to their networks. And then thirdly, we capitalized on the power of matching gift challenges at very strategic times during our campaign, which boosted support during the entire effort. So you can see we really focused on peer-to-peer. There's the homepage right there in the center. To the left is the individual and team fundraising pages, and as well as our mission-centered graphics about the intensive care unit and the effort that we were focusing on, as well as we ensured that all of our sponsors were recognized on our site. So this is the Classy platform, and we also had a thermometer right in the middle so people could watch and track our progress real time. Next slide, please. So the next one is Upaya Social Ventures. So we think that they were one of the first in the region that we're aware of that went virtual. From decision to launch was a matter of about a week for Upaya. They focused on peer-to-peer as well, and also included an online live auction. Much of their content was recorded video that was already prepared because they were within their gala week. They did have live introduction from their CEO and their auctioneer that enhanced their effort. This again was hosted on the Classy platform, and the giving pages as well as the recorded videos were all hosted on the Classy platform. Next slide, please. So I included this one. This is North Shore Schools Foundation, and it wasn't an event, it was a fundraising effort, but I think it's an important thing to share because it can be a standalone effort like North Shore School Foundation did, or a larger part of a digital event. But it's a small Facebook fundraiser. It's a dinner experience, as you can see, a 4-course paired Memorial Day dinner. So they partnered with a local chef and a winery, and people could order that 4-course wine paired dinner and enjoy it at home. And they raised about $6,000, all via Facebook and people ordering their meals. So it's a neat take on creating the environment at home and working with the community. Next slide, please. This is a fun one. This is Homeward Pet Adoption Center, their fur ball. This is a great example of a live event that had multiple elements. It had auction, silent and live auction. It had recorded elements. It had live hosts. So this was at a set time. They were at a production studio in Seattle. They were also broadcasting on Facebook and YouTube Live, and used Greater Giving for their Fund and Aid silent and live auctions. They also did something unique in that their live chat was monitored on Facebook. So as we engaged in the entire event, which took about 45 minutes, we could also watch the chat and they could answer questions real time. But you can see there, they're on a stage, they're honoring social distance rules, and they had the thermometer in terms of fundraising, and then their live auction events with the MC providing information about the different live events or live auction packages that they were auctioning off. So 4 examples, some fun ideas of how organizations successfully went virtual. So let me share some tips and tricks about designing your virtual event. Next slide, please. So as I just shared, the opportunities are really endless in terms of what you can do to create your event design and your experience. What is your event going to look like? So as you saw in some of those examples, we saw recorded and live events and hybrid where they used both. There's opportunities for you to host a virtual cocktail hour, invite people to gather and socialize ahead of the event, all virtually. Ideas similar to North Shore Schools Foundation is hosting a party in a box, creating that experience for people to enjoy at home. They can set the stage from wherever they are at. With virtual events, you can also consider entertainment, both recorded and perhaps even live entertainment. Perhaps using entertainment as an intermission to give people a break to go and refill beverages. There's VIP experiences that you can engage. Again, creating those limited opportunities for people to elevate for their guests, maybe that dinner experience at home or that cocktail hour. And then I think it's also important during your event is to include those sponsor segments. And there's multiple ways to promote our sponsors via video, via recognition or vignettes on social media. All those promotions are valued and are going to be retained with the event forever. Next slide, please. So when we get to the actual event, I think the important thing to think about is engagement, is how do you keep your audience tuned in? Right now, audience is our most valuable currency at the moment. Attention is the most valuable currency at the moment. You need to keep people focused and engaged. It may be that you have some matching gift announcements or different ways to keep people engaged in the program. Gamification is a great way to do that. For perhaps offering a limited number of VIP dinners with all purchases, or maybe in it to win it if your guests are still active in the final segment of your live event, they're in it for a drawing. So gamification is a fun way to keep them engaged. As you utilize live elements like Facebook or YouTube, we encourage you to keep it dynamic, short and to the point, and really, again, focusing on your the mission and the mission-centered content. What I think is also important if you're going live and using technology is to consider a pre-show to prepare your audience and how to use the different technology and get them ready for the event. Dressing the part is always fun too. It's creating the environment for whether that be at the stage where you're recording or where you may be broadcasting, but also encouraging people to create the environment in their home. So as they're engaging with your event during the period of time, that they feel like they're a part of the activity. even so much as encouraging them to engage by posting selfies on social media and engaging during the event. So there's having two-way communication with them through software and technology. Next slide, please. So as we shared, the platforms and tools are coming online every day. They're changing every day, but we encourage you to look around maybe in your giving circles or through the invitations that you might have received to participate in some of these fundraisers, and see what others are doing and what they're doing successfully, and where areas where you might be able to enhance or make it even better. So, but as we look at different platforms and tools, I think it's important to emphasize that we utilize your own asset in your website, making sure that the content is robust and concise upon your website, that any videos that you would be sharing in any of the platforms are up on your website, and also that they have access to the giving platform directly is also helpful. So there's a number, as I shared, a number of platforms. We just got a couple samples here we want to share with you. So peer-to-peer fundraising, they offer you a suite of products for online giving and fundraising. So Classy is one of them, Kindful, One Cause. And then Zoom Give is really an enhancement because it allows for mobile donation platform. It's a mobile donation, and it's designed to simplify the fundraising. So most of these are subscription based or pay as you go, but Zoom Give is actually free for a limited time. So it's something to look at as well. From live platforms, as I shared, just the two that I've observed over the last couple of weeks is Facebook and YouTube Live. It's super easy to reach your audience in real time using those tools. And then, of course, having the right auction management software if you're going to have an auction streamlines the entire auction process from bidders and bidding to checkout. Greater Giving is a great example here in the Northwest. And then Octria is also a really neat option. Again, they have a suite of products to support your auctions. So thanks for allowing me to share some examples, some tips and tricks. Now I'll turn it back over to Kay.
Okay, and we're going to go to back to our objective slide. Okay, let's just make sure we covered everything. I know, I see you are all excited about doing virtual opportunities and embracing this opportunity. You're not going to waste any time to get out there and get your committee together to start thinking about what awesome things you can do. I also hope you started to think about, and it's probably already happened to you, it's going to happen to you, so return the favor to other people. You are going to be started, if you haven't received a multitude of invitations by now, you're going to receive invitations from people at your church youth group. You're going to receive them from the Wayward Pets. You're going to receive them from lots of other people. So don't be shy about encouraging your entire peer-to-peer network to participate in what's really important to you and what's really at the core of your mission in Rotary and helping us to do good in the world. We hopefully gave you some tips on designing your virtual event. Focus, focus, focus. I do have to say, and I can say this because of having been in Rotary for so many years, it's hard for us to focus. It's hard for us to not want to build a well in Africa, and it's hard not for us to want to give scholarships to students, and it's hard for us not to want to feed the homeless. It's hard for us not to want to support the Interact kids and the Rotaract kids. Problem is, if you do all of that in your one event, you're going to lose focus and lose the opportunity to really hone in on a message that's important. So while you think through this, think really strategically about all the wonderful work Rotary does, but think specifically about maybe you're going to do a global grant in your club this year. So maybe you want to focus that fundraising on that well in Africa and why that's so important and why it's so critical and how we can turn that money into $4 instead of $1. Or maybe it is really giving high school scholarships, or maybe it's reinventing how we do graduation and helping our kids. Whatever is important to your club, that's what you want to really focus that message in on your event, and try your best to not be all things to all people. Be one really important, passionate message to a lot of people. That would be the most important message of today. And then we shared with you the platforms. Have fun clicking on them, watching them. Ours is still live. You can go on and see that. That's the beauty of these. You can leave them up for however long your fundraising can go on for some time. So one of the other things that we found interesting in this whole thing, we talk about our new world, and we talk about how many of us are having to reinvent what we do. We have Tim joining us, who is Tim is an auctioneer by day and president of the Bellevue Eastside Rotary Club by night, but he is really looking at, I have to say, we didn't need an auctioneer to go virtual. So I think Tim has some thoughts on maybe the role of auctioneer as a well-trained host. Tim, do you want to share a few things?
I'd love to, Kay. Thank you for the introduction. First and foremost, I just want to compliment Meg and Shauna. What an incredible job that they did. And we appreciate them sharing their experience with us because they've done it firsthand. It's one thing to be able to tap into hearing the so-called experts talk about, well, you can do this, you can do that, but they've done it, and they've done it successfully at Evergreen. So we're very appreciative for them sharing what they've learned through the process. As Kay said, for we auctioneers, our life turned upside down. We weren't ready for this. It wasn't what we as auctioneers do. We love being in a room with 200, 300, 100 people and being able to interact with them. It's how we do what we do. It's how we read their faces and how we're able to, I guess, as you would say, for many entertainers in a live format, you utilize that opportunity to see, are you connecting with them or aren't you? Is it time to raise a bid, or is it time to close the sale? So those things are all gone with a virtual auction. However, and we've become hosts now. So when we're involved in a virtual event, a virtual auction in most cases, we've become hosts. So it's similar to being MCs. In many cases, there may be a live auction, in which case we continue to play that role. But again, we don't have that interaction of being able to see, are we connecting on an item or aren't we? So we're pretty much hosting those items. But the one thing that has not changed is that we continue to be committed to those clients that we've been working with for a number of years. I think quite often people think, though, the auctioneer is the hired gun that shows up the night of the event and does his thing and then leaves. And it couldn't be further from the truth. The auctioneers that I know through my associations with them are all very committed to the organizations that they work with. And that has not changed in this time. In fact, if anything, we have become a resource for them. So my appeal to you would be, if you've been doing events and you're like, okay, now what do we do? Tap into your auctioneer that you've been using in the past, or find a new one that's familiar with how to do things in this virtual world, and utilize the auctioneer as part of your team. I think it's a difficult time right now for anybody that's planning an event to try to go it alone. So use the tools that you have available to you, including the auctioneers. And the one thing that I've heard over and over again through the presentations today is that develop your strategy, develop your plans. And the main thing that I would suggest is once you've made that decision, once you've determined your strategy, once you've started building your plan, go for it. Just do it. We're in a time now where your guests, your viewers, if you will, in a virtual event, are very understanding and very forgiving. So it's no longer planning the perfect event where every centerpiece has to be just right, and then the lighting has to be perfect, the meal must be ideal. Just go with it, and you will be amazed at what we're finding out. I believe, Kay, you can probably speak to this, but I know at Evergreen, the supporters of Evergreen, they understand what's going on. And when you go to them and make an appeal with the virtual event and you say, hey, we need your help, your supporters are going to step up and they're going to help you. So my the main appeal to you would be get your plan in place and just go for it. So that's,
Have some fun.
yeah.
Speaking of fun, let's put ourselves on the hot block for some questions. Lisa, do we have some questions from some of our viewers?
Why, yes, we do. We have quite a few for you this evening.
Okay.
So let's get started. How long, let's start with a question from Susan. How long ahead of time was the auction held before the gala date? How many days, weeks were people able to go to the site? So what is that span between the auction and the event?
Yeah, Meg, do you want to take that one? Ours was much shorter. We were really stuck in this vortex of a new world from the governor. So ours, yeah. Meg, do you want to take that?
Sure. You know, it was very short, as Kay mentioned, and we opted not to do a silent or a live auction this year. We just focused on the fund and need. So we sent out communications the week before. Actually, I apologize. We've posted on our website that we were going virtual as soon as we knew. I think Shauna, 3 weeks before or so, we communicated that via our website. Then we sent out reminders or kind of virtual save the dates the week prior. It's a little difficult because you want them to know that you're going virtual, but you don't want to. There's no action item for them to take at that point because your site is not live. But the more that they know that it's going virtual, that it's happening and during a certain period of time, the better it is. So ours was very short, but it can be longer. Shauna, would you agree?
Yeah, and if I could add on, so with the two examples that we did see in auction, both silent and live, so both Umpaya and Homeward Pet, they really looked at theirs as an auction week. And so they opened their silent about 3 days before and closed it that night, obviously. And then they previewed their live days before. And Umpaya did the same thing. They were just 1 day before with their silent auction, and then they closed it the night of. So it was really an auction or a gala week.
We also think you could do a hybrid where actually our site, if you would like to donate to Evergreen Health, our site is still live and it's been up for 3 weeks now. And we still continue to have a few donations here and there. We will probably cut it off, but we wanted to give you all the opportunity to see it and have fun on our site if you wanted to go around and see what all we did. But like probably you want to end the silent auction or of course the live auction in a specific amount of time, but you might have your, what we refer to as fund a need, the opportunity to fund that well in Africa or help the seniors. You could have that up for a month, 6 weeks. It doesn't matter. Think of it as how many people get things in the mail or in your email and, oh yeah, I'm going to star that and I'm going to go back and look at it later. And I think that's what we're seeing on our site with people still coming in with donations is these are the peer-to-peer outreaches that happened and then somebody sort of forgot about it and then they either saw the person, heard from them, something sparred their memory, and they go back in and click it. So my advice, and I think the team would support this, is I wouldn't end it too soon. I would make sure you really optimize that peer-to-peer opportunity. Lisa, next.
Okay, so we have about 15 more questions. So I'm going to ask the presenters to be as succinct as possible so we can get through as many as possible. How long is the typical online event? Hour?
Yeah, that's really, I think that's up to you. You'll see in those examples we used, if you're going to go live, I've seen them 30 minutes. I wouldn't go more than an hour. People really don't want to sit in front of this computer that long. Just really depends on how creative you want to be at engaging them. I would think smaller and more opportunities.
There's a comment as an FYI, similar to Zoom Give is Our Mayberry. That's another platform for our participants to look at, Our Mayberry. And if we raise for one focus, how much can we also spend on other causes if we do fund that focus first? Are there guidelines?
Yeah, so that's very similar to what you would probably do in a live event. So for example, this at our live event, we do a fund a need, and that fund a need is specifically dedicated to what it is we raise the money for that night. So let's say it's our ICU, but then we have the money from the ticket sales and the dinner and the silent auction and the live auction. That's all open to supporting the mission of the foundation, which is to support the department within, we do it within the department. So that would be Rotary's opportunity. Focus your fund a need on that well or the seniors, and then whatever else came in from your live auction or your silent auction, you would put a disclaimer on your site saying that funds raised for the fund a need will specifically go to support the well in Africa. All other funds will support the many works of the Shoreline Rotary Club.
Next
Perfectly
question.
good.
Next question. Was the decision for Evergreen to focus on the ICU in the original plan, or was it a pivot due to COVID-19?
Sometimes you just get lucky. We were assigned that as our beneficiary last August. So we just seriously got blessed.
What about an open giving period? A lot of the descriptions that were provided this evening were one-time events. Is there like an open giving season or a period of time like Give Big? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think you could participate in the Give Big. I would, again, go back to how much your goal is and how you think you could raise it. And really that drives how long you would want to leave your event online. It would also, I imagine, drive how many events you have during that time. Shauna, Meg, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I wouldn't end cap it to Kay's point. If donations are coming in, you don't want to take away the tool that people are utilizing. It takes a little while for peer-to-peer sometimes to get that spreading and that spider effect. So I would think about leaving it open for a period of time for that peer-to-peer to work effectively.
Yeah, I think people may need to think about peer-to-peer more and try not to make it fit into the old person-to-person event. Think of it as really different.
There's an interesting question from Howard. If and when we get past this pandemic and life gets back to what could be normal, would you go back to an in-person event, or would you consider continuing the online events?
So they're laughing because we just had this exact conversation this afternoon. I have to say, from our experience and my experience with this peer-to-peer platform, there's no way we wouldn't incorporate a hybrid event. We would perhaps do something in person, But we will definitely include the peer-to-peer component in our fundraising going forward, because it's just proven to be too good not to capitalize on it. So I think you should start thinking as we get into whatever normal is going to be, of doing something of a hybrid.
Okay, we have 8 more questions we're going to get through real
Okay.
quickly. There's a question about the slides being available to look at after class, after this webinar, and share it. Will those be available?
So if whoever would like the slides wants to send an email, we should have put that on the front slide, but if you send an email to my initials, KL, last name Peterson, at evergreenhealth.com, tell us you want these slides, we'll send you the whole deck.
There you go.
You'll get the live links.
Thank you, Kay, for that.
Replication is the best thing.
There's a couple of questions about a training site for auctioneers, a question for Tim about this, and tools for auctioneers. Some clubs have a club member that fulfills this role and they don't use an outside auctioneer. How can they help that person up their game?
How can they help that person up their, well, that's a new one on me. How do you train an auctioneer? That's tough. I'd be happy to help them if they want to send me an email, but I'm not aware of any websites they can go to. I guess they could Google it, but how do you help somebody in a club become an auctioneer? I'm not sure.
Well, I think you could, in one of the ways, what you mentioned about becoming the host, you could think of that person as being your professional host, because they are trained to be in front of a crowd, so they should do interviews well, they should command a room well, and they would probably be excellent to have on video.
Yeah. I didn't know if they were talking about on a virtual basis or long-term, so.
Yeah.
Next question, what kind of items are being auctioned? Sarah is worried about feasibility of experiences right now in this new normal. Like, what about trips? And what about meals for groups of 8? So
Yeah.
is it better to focus on physical items?
So I saw, we've been going through a number of different auctions, and I can't remember what group was doing it. But like what they did was think of some of the stuff, I think of what we had at the Lake Forest Park Rotary Club auction, desserts for a month. Okay, so they're just desserts for a month delivered to your home. Flowers for a month delivered to your home. Trips are probably, you kind of got to go by what think your group's level of comfort is. And quite frankly, if we ever get into phase 2, that would be a big help. But I think those kind of things are probably a moment in time decision. But think about delivering things to the home. Think about different ways you can have virtual cocktail parties. You could have, a cocktail a month delivered to somebody's home in a basket with booze and the accoutrements and whatnot, and host a nice party just like this online.
Hey, can I say something about the trips? Because that's a big issue, because a lot of auctions offer trips. And in fact, we normally offer what we call our Pick Your Paradise, which is a week for 2 in Bali or Italy or Africa, which normally have had a 2-year time in which you had to use the trip. And most of the trip providers now, because of the environment that we're in, are extending that to a 3-year expiration. So it's good to know if you're looking at trips, make sure you utilize some that have the extended expiration. And in every case, even folks that have bought them in the past, all the trip providers that we're involved with are working with those people to extend the trips, even if you've previously bought them at other events.
And can I just end, Cap? I know we're running quick, but I just want to say, I think that we're seeing a big trend in supporting local as well. So supporting those local restaurants, buying those gift certificates, buying those gift cards, so that when they do resume operations, that you're supporting local. And that's just not just about restaurants, but it's wineries, service providers, et cetera. So there's a big push on staying right at home and focusing on those small businesses.
Okay, we have 6 more questions, so we're going to get through these as quickly as possible. Wayne, thank you for the recommendation to check out Western College of Auctioneering as a suggestion for those who are wanting some support for their club member who may be an auctioneer. There's also the National Auctioneer Association. Question about how long do we have to decide ahead of the regular date as far as going virtual? We are normally in early February for our event. And so Allison would like to know, what is that time span where you need to decide whether you're going virtual or not?
So I think that really depends on how much you want to spend. If you want to, because you're going to have to get into contracts for catering, for an event space. If you want to take the chance and enter into those contracts, do it knowing that you may have to cancel. So really pay attention to your cancellation. We got caught up on that. I mean, we were 3 weeks from our event, so we were into final payment. So it cost us quite a bit more to put this on than it should all of you if you pivot quickly. So that's really, budget is your driver for when you make that decision, in my opinion. Yeah.
A few more questions. We're almost done.
Okay.
What's the best way, David would like to know, what's the best way to collect money virtually, both for donation and upon auction bids? So maybe you want to talk a little bit about platforms, which ones collect money. People may not understand the platforms.
Meg, you want to take that?
Sure. Yep. It's all about platforms there. So Classy took all of our transactions, and we associated it with our bank, and they all went directly there and was encrypted and safe for our users to use. And then we just enter the gifts into our database on the back end. So it's all about your platform. For all of those platforms that were on the slide that Shauna gave, they have capability to take donations. And then the online auctions like Greater Giving, they also have a capability to take in funds.
Right. And they go straight into your club account. So it's a nice seamless process. Okay, Judy, can you share one of your peer-to-peer pages or the team page, which I think you did, to show what that looked like for Evergreen? Let's do that one last, if you're all okay with that. I can stop sharing. Last question, with social distancing, what tricks did you use to contact sponsors? Zoom meetings, package video requests. So in this no contact world, how are you getting those sponsors?
Yeah, well, for us, we already had our sponsors because we were, again, within 3 weeks. But we also have a partnership with the foundation at Monroe, at Evergreen Health Monroe. And what I know Blake's doing up there is putting together a package that he's sending out virtually. And you got to start looking at numbers of clicks and how many people see your page, and this whole tech world. Get somebody young and techie to help you understand all the benefits that go with this, because there really are a lot more eyes on your sponsors than there were at an event where 75 or 200 people come to.
Chris suggested that another platform for our participants to consider is Compass 360. Auction support is only one component and their price is very reasonable. So thank you, Chris, for that suggestion as well. And so now going back for sharing peer-to-peer pages, I believe you said Evergreen Health is still up.
Yep.
And maybe you want to talk about, real briefly, we have like a minute left, social integration for people who want to see peer-to-peer pages. Does anybody want to talk about Facebook and how you integrated with social? Instagram?
Yeah, we didn't use Facebook. We used the Classy platform. But if you want to check out our website, Meg, Shauna, our our website is
give.evergreenhealth.org.
Say that again.
give.evergreenhealth.org.
And you can just go on there and play around. You can see all of our pages. You can see how our matching came out. You can see individual and team pages. So to conclude this, I just really want to say, embrace this, have fun. You're going to make some mistakes. You're going to wish you would have done it different. The good news is, pretty sure you're going to get another chance to do it this way next year too, at least in some form. So have some fun, be creative, really think strategically about how you can make yours stand out. And we're here for a resource. Tim's a resource, Bellevue East Side. And Lisa, thank you. You've been a fabulous tech person. Thank you to Shauna and Meg and Tim. Great team. It's been fun, and I so appreciated you joining us today. Thank you, each and every one of you.
Thank you all for joining us. Please keep in mind that this session is being recorded, and it will be posted on the District 5030 YouTube page, so you can find it and share it with other club members, your fundraising committee, to inspire them and have some great ideas for future events. Thank you, presenters. You were awesome. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.